And I'm going to share my screen. There it is. So do people see WWPC announcements?
Yep, I'm seeing it.
Okay, good. So I'm recording the meeting. I'll continue to admit people as they show up in the waiting room. We've talked about, Mike talked about breaking his presentation down into 4 parts and possibly having some questions after each section. So hold on a second here.
Could I make a short announcement before we get started?
You can make an announcement after I make some announcements. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm going to set this up as a slideshow. We'll play. Announcements. Starting with some business here. You've all gotten an email from Jill reminding you about the deadline for the October salon. The deadline is September 14th and the assignment is night. Couple of changes in the rules. One's newer than the other, but for the assignment category, it's no longer necessary to have a specific image date, have the image taken after a particular date. It can be as old as you want. And then the other change is about how the images that you select are distributed across the categories. There used to be some rule about 2 in the assignment category and the remaining 2 images in either of the other 2 or any of the other 4 categories. Right now, the rule has changed to a maximum of 4 digital images distributed any way you like across the 4 categories. And then the other announcement is just also a reminder that the North Central Camera Club Council contests are resuming as of this month. The deadline for that is September 10. And if you haven't participated in that, I'd encourage you to consider it. If you've done this Wisconsin club salons, but not the N4C, it's a good experience. It's different kind of feedback, and an image that you submit for the Western Wisconsin club that doesn't do well might do really well in N4C and vice versa. I've had very different experiences that way. So it's good to get the feedback in any case. Terry, go ahead. I have some people to admit while you're talking.
I was going to bring up the same thing about N4C.
Okay.
The contests have resumed. I think sometime later this month, we'll get results of the end of year judging for those images that received acceptances throughout the year. Those awards should be made sometime in September when they have their meeting. And
Okay. Thank you, Terry. I'm going to, so I'm meeting a couple of other people. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to introduce Mike Chrun. We were talking earlier that he's a retired English teacher. He's spent a lot of time on the North Shore over the last many years and has some wonderful images in the winter all year round, but particularly in the winter. And we're sitting in a hot and muggy day in Minnesota today, but it soon will be getting cooler, as we all know, and we've got winter to look forward to on the North Shore. So
Oh, how do I get rid of this?
take it away, Mike.
Okay, have you hit play, Steve?
Well, I've got your first slide up.
Okay, but to make full screen up
Oh,
on
the
top.
working on it. How's that?
Okay, I think that's maybe a better visual.
Yep.
No, it's fine.
All right, hello, everybody. I guess I'd add to that little biography. I'm also a member of the Wisconsin Camera Club. I'm former president of the St. Croix Valley Club.
Mhm.
And obviously this is on winter photography on
And I
the North
talked to
Shore.
Cheryl, Paul's wife. She said that she really likes Lori. And she says she could be my golf partner forever. And she said that we want to have you and Benji and Scott and Lori over for dinner. And she says, we will, but I'm not as good a cook. And she said, and I don't know what'll happen, but it'll happen. Well,
So everybody needs to mute.
I know.
Everyone needs to mute. If
Yeah.
I can do that myself, I'll do
When you're
that.
at
Hold
their
on.
house, it's a little
Everyone
different.
needs to mute. Give me a second here.
Paul had an eagle on one.
Okay, I was looking for the mute all and haven't succeeded yet. Has everyone muted? Don't think so. Give me a second here. Sorry for this.
We missed those. So when we got back, did we get one full day of rain? We did, I think. Remember, we got 2.5 inches of rain.
Oh, there it is.
Steve, can you hear me?
I can hear you. My technical disability is not helping me here, so I'm looking
Hey,
for mute all.
I totally understand.
BJ was saying they have a routine in the morning with Jack.
Mute all, please. Everybody mute.
Well, they can't do it, so I do it. Something about helping him down the steps.
Hmm.
And they have throw rugs all over their house so he can grab a hold. And she said, this is a hazard, having all these throw rugs everywhere. She said, I won't miss that.
I'm making progress here.
Oh my,
Okay.
You know, my cousin Lucy is 10 years younger than me.
Hey, Steve, this is Mike. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Maybe
She's
since the person who's carrying on the conversation
she might have
is
been
participating in this, maybe put them in a waiting room or remove them from the meeting because they're holding up the rest of
yeah,
the
I
group
understand.
and interrupting the presentation.
I'm looking at the list of participants and trying
Yeah.
to figure out who it is.
My device, it's CHAPPY, whoever that is.
Okay, I think I just muted him. Yes, okay. Sorry about that. And I will mute myself.
Well, I think I'll just start again. I pointed out that I have been a member of Western Wisconsin for a few years, although not real active since it's about a 50-minute drive. And
So Steve, it looks like you got everybody but Lissa, but you did get yourself also. But Mike, I assume you can just take it away now.
okay. All right. And former president of St. Croix Valley, I got that position removed.
Although I can't hear you at the moment either.
Oh, well, I'm not muted from what I can see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, who said they couldn't hear me, or should I just go on?
Just go on, please.
Okay. What, whatever. This talks obviously winter photography on the North Shore. And like Steve pointed out, you're maybe not thinking of it today, but it'll be coming fairly quickly. So I guess next. Okay, my presentation, I've seen enough photography from Western Wisconsin photographers that I'm certainly not qualified to tell you how to take a picture or settings or that type of thing. The presentation is reasons for going, preparing to go, when to go, that's really important, and then where to go. I found that a lot of people know some of the state parks, and I'll touch on those, but there's other spots that are really neat also. And then the final thing, and it'll be sort of all the way through the presentation, and those of you who've seen it before will recognize some of the information that I've given before. And as I get older and older, staying safe is really important up there in the winter. Obviously anywhere, but especially on the North Shore, you can really get into trouble. Next. I've already touched photo wisdom. It's doubtful. I'm sort of bill this as a practical information from a 76-year-old guy. And you notice I put in the age, not to really brag, but to point out that it really is accessible to everybody. You don't have to be Daniel Boone's descendant to navigate the North Shore in the winter. And I do assume that most people or all of you have some familiarity with the North Shore. When I gave this talk first to our club several years ago, I'd been doing the photography for a couple of years and thought I really had things nailed down. And then each subsequent winter, I realized I didn't know as much as I thought I did, because each winter is really different. And snow is often the determining factor in just the difference from winter to winter. Next. Steve, next. Okay, but go back one, please. Okay, it's my favorite part of Minnesota. I live in the valley like I assume most of you do. I've been going there, excuse me, since the early 70s. camping, hiking, and I used to be a really avid cross-country skier. Uh, Fanatical, as a matter of fact. I wasn't that good, but I just loved it. And now I go basically only for the photography. The last 5 winters, I never even took my skis. I prefer to go up for a couple of days, but a lot of the photography is very weather dependent. And it's real hard to say, okay, a week from now, I'm going to go up to take wave pictures, because you have no idea what the conditions are going to be a week from, now, or possibly even tomorrow. So being retired with a lot of flexibility helps. If the weather conditions look good, I'll drive up for the day, if nothing else. From Taylor's Falls to Duluth, I can be at Canal Park in a little under 2 hours. And I really have an understanding wife. She likes to go with me. She loves the outdoors also. But whenever I say I'm going to go up for the day and she's going to be home alone, she has never once said, please don't go. I don't want to be in the house alone without you. So it works out really well. Next. Winter is my favorite season by far. The lake is much more dynamic. Now, obviously, I picked these 2 slides, but the one on the left, June, July, and August, you could lay pretty heavy odds that that's what the conditions are going to be like. It's sort of nice to be there, but it's also sort of boring as far as what the water or the light or the conditions at. Whereas on the right, it's much more fun. And it also depends on what sort of person you are. I've stood off this point for probably an hour until I couldn't feel my hands, just trying to get that right wave, and I still haven't got it. But each winter I go back up and continue to try. Next. I just think the snow and ice, it just makes a much more dramatic landscape. That's about on the left as wild as the lake gets in the summer. I'm not even sure when I took this, definitely in the summer. On the right, very calm day, but you can see you've got the ice adds so much more. You've got the sea smoke that's receding in the background. And I think it, like I have up on the top, it's just much more dramatic. Next. And wonderful winter light. I think that's what I really love, or one of the things I really love. This is sort of mid-afternoon, actually, probably 2:30, 3 o'clock for both these shots. The sun's at a low angle. It goes through much more atmosphere. On the left, if you get the sun breaking through, as it often does towards the end of the day, you got that dark blue background and, like somebody's shining a wonderful light. This is the mouth of the Temperance River. Over on the right, just sort of a gold, not really a golden light, but in mid-afternoon, you'd never get that type of light in the summer, I don't think. Just the detail in the ice, the shadows, those types of things. And there is sort of, to me, a little bit of a golden color to the snow and ice. Next. One of the things I really like, and it's since I gave this talk the first time, it's gotten so much more crowded. This is Gooseberry Falls. Good luck trying to take a picture of the falls from this position anytime in the summer months. And obviously over on the right, it's a little bit different position, but basically maybe about 20 feet away from the first picture, different lens. I had the park to myself. If you look at the trees in the background, it had just snowed. There were no other tracks. besides the ones I made. It's much easier to make last minute plans. And it's much cheaper if you're going to stay there 2 or 3 nights. Just as an example, and this is from 3 years ago, I didn't change this slide. We stayed there for $105 at the Silver Bay American Inn in March, $105. It was a storm weekend versus 200 plus the following summer in July. And I doubt you could have made a reservation 2 weeks before, since they're generally booked up, as most places are the last couple of years. Next. One thing that I enjoy, especially one of those trips, last minute decisions to go up for the day, sunrise is a lot later, almost 2 hours later. I put down it's more time to sleep, but actually it's more time to get up there in a good position before the sun starts to rise. And then one thing more, and if you've seen this before, you've seen the slide before, this summer it was really bad for bugs. The mosquitoes were out early. Well, even before them, the gnats were out, then the mosquitoes, and then those little biting flies that get you around the ankles. Guarantee you that if you do winter photography, you're not going to be bothered by bugs. Next. Okay, preparation and safety. Again, I've pointed out it's very weather dependent. I've got National Weather Service 2 harbors bookmarked. I've got Minnesota 511 MN 511 bookmark. That's highway conditions, and I've got it zeroed in on Highway 61, and always check that as I'm making plans, and then definitely before I leave to go up there. If I'm up there, I check it before I go out for the day. There are some areas where there is no cell phone, even like Silver Bay. You can get into a couple spots where there is no signal. Further up the shore, especially east of Grand Marais, you might not get a signal. So if I'm going alone, I'll give sort of a plan to my wife. We both know that I'll change it on the spur of the moment, but at least she has some idea of what my plans are. And then I do, getting much, much better, text her several times a day, just telling her where I am and where I'm going next. I think just being prudent. And there are spots towards the end of the day I'll avoid, especially if it's very cold. They're rocky, icy shelves. Not a lot of people frequent them. Split Rock State Park. Well, I skipped Gooseberries, and especially it's got this huge shelf, rock shelf, and it's generally icy as you get towards the water, and even up high, depending on snow melt that freezes. If you fell and broke a leg there, you might really be in trouble. Split Rock, tend also not to go in a couple spots there. If you know Sugarloaf Nature Center, that's another area that I avoid. I find, Grand Marais area, Tetagooch, those 2 places, Black Beach, there's usually people going in and out. Not that I'm going to be stupid about it, but I feel a little more confident there if I'm by myself. And next. Things that I have, I'm a great believer in the Smart Wool brand. Obviously, long underwear, both top and bottom. And then over that, I'll put a wool shirt or sweater. And then often, and even if it's going to be 15 below, I might just take the inner part of my Columbia winter jacket out and just wear the shell. I spend more time in the car than outdoors. If you put on too much and exert yourself, then the problem is you get sweaty, wet, and you're probably worse off. A good pair of waterproof hiking boots is essential. You're going to be walking through snow. And the hat that covers the ears, I don't even know what the name of them is. I do have one of those. Face mask with glasses. I still have yet to find a really good face mask. But I do have one with. A lot of times I'll just wear earband or that you put on your ears. I'll just slip it down over my neck. And then if I really start feeling cold, I'll just basically pull it up over my nose and above my mouth so I can breathe out and not fog up the glasses. And then in the car, dry socks, another pair of shoes, another pair of gloves. I do have hand warmers with. Very seldom do I use them. Always have a hiking pole, definitely. Maybe even two, but definitely one with the metal tip, not a rubber tip. And then I'll also have a knee pad, maybe the type they sell in Menards to lay tile or something like that, or gardening pad if I have to kneel down in the snow or on the ice. I also have rubber knee-high boots in the car. As I get older and older, I use them less and less. And a lot of times, especially for the storm shots, it might be misty or rainy. And I do have a rain hood for the camera, but it's also usually a high wind. And mine is not exactly professional model. It's quite useless. So what I tend to do, the Columbia jacket's waterproof. I will just sort of have the top of it loosened and I'll put the camera under my coat when I'm moving or something like that. And also I'll have a couple of lens caps and always try to put the lens cap on when I'm not taking the photo. Next. The hands, I think, are about the second most critical thing. This is what I use. Those of you who are cross-country skiers, you'll recognize Toco, and they have nicknamed this their lobster mitt. 2 years ago, you could get it for $35 on Amazon. Inside that, I wear those thin gloves. Black Smart Wool makes excellent ones. There's other companies that make them. And again, about 2 years ago, they were $15 on Amazon. And I'll have the glove and then my hand with the Smart Wool glove. And it's just, you can really control the camera. You can't really control the shutter that well, but you can do other things like mount it on a tripod, whatever, with the 3-fingered glove. And then when you really need more dexterity, it's real easy to slip them off. And underneath, I have Glittens are another choice. Put the glove in those old-fashioned leather choppers that you might have worn or had when you were a kid. And that also works really well, except it's a little bit clumsier handling the camera, tripod, that type of thing with them, rather than the lobster mitt. Next. By far, other than the camera, the most important thing to have are spikes. And I highly recommend these. These are Catula brand. They have many different types. These have about I'm not sure if it's even a 1/2 inch spike. You can see they slip fairly easy over your shoe or boot. And I will not go up without them. As a matter of fact, last year I got up to Sandstone and realized that I'd left my bag with these spikes back home, and I just turned around because it was going to be a shooting ice formations type of day, and I just at my age I just can't afford to go down hard on rock or ice. I got these at REI. I've had them for, I think now, this pair for 3 years, and they're just very durable. If you're going to buy them, don't underestimate the size, especially if your boot has a large sole or is sort of bulky. You're much better off going up in size rather than getting the exact size that you think you need. Next. Okay, I think this little part will be the end of the first part, and then we can take a look at what's in chat. Obviously, and again, I assume all of you, or just about all of you, are very experienced photographers. Making sure the battery's charged. I carry a spare one in the pocket. With my Canon 70D, which I used to bang around up there, I basically very seldom have to change, go to the second battery, even on cold days. Next.
Well, I'm going to interrupt with a question in the chat.
Okay.
Someone's asking, are the steps at Gooseberry shoveled or cleared of snow in the winter?
No, there are no parks where they clear them, and I was going to get to that in a little while.
Okay.
I will cover that. It's coming up.
Okay.
And
I also have a question. I usually wear gaiters to keep the snow out of my boots. Is that something you use, or you have another
I have a
solution?
pair. I generally don't. I find with the Keen hiking boots, and then if I just, obviously the jeans go over the top of that. I should have added, I also have wind pants. No, and I mean, I certainly see people up there with gaiters, especially after a snowfall.
Yeah,
And we had a
okay.
couple this last winter where, yeah, I probably should have taken them with, but I really don't even have them in the bag. But that's
Okay.
I think personal preference.
Okay. I'll move on here.
Okay, and obviously not high-end equipment, but it works for me. 16-300 Tamron zoom. I think if you haven't done it before, you're going to find out that you probably would want a zoom lens, simply because, I mean, it might be 10 below, wind blowing. You really don't want to be changing a lens, too many times in those extreme conditions. Just what might happen to the camera, or dropping the lens or anything like that. So a zoom lens, highly recommend. Next. I have a couple of lens cloths in my coat pocket where I can get at them easily. I usually have a lens brush. Don't obviously blow on the lens if it's below freezing. And sometimes you're going to be in freezing spray and things like that. You've got to be really careful, because if that lens gets that little bit of ice on it, you probably have to go back to the car and warm it up, or at least stick it in your coat. So I'm very conscious of that, and try to keep that lens covered at all times. Although there's going to be a couple spots, and I'll talk about them, where if you want the photo, it's really hard to avoid getting water on the lens. Next. Just a couple of practical things that I'm sure experienced photographers just do. Obviously, make sure the camera or the tripod is sitting solidly. I just have rubber tips on mine and never really had a problem. I know some people who are really into it have pointed sort of ice spike ends to the tripod. And I always make sure I've got the strap. If I'm not taking the camera off the tripod, just moving it 10, 20 feet, I'm always careful to also be holding on to the strap just in case you thought you had it attached to the tripod, but it's cold, your hands aren't working, you might be in a little bit of a hurry. Uh, you know, you don't want to move the tripod and have the camera fall off. Next. And I learned this early, I think magazine article, an outdoor photographer. If I'm not using the camera outside, if I get in the car or the motel room or whatever, try to get it in the camera bag and cover it up as soon as possible. And it's real easy if you're in a hurry or want to get to another spot. It's been cold outside, the car is warm. You get in the car and put the camera down. There's going to be moisture or condensation. You know, it just is really hard on the camera if you're not taking a little bit of special care. But that's also why I have a middle level Canon that I use up there. I just figure I don't want to put a $3,000 camera through the things. Okay, next. All right, this is sort of a place to end of the first part of the conversation, Steve. Okay, I don't see, okay, I'll get to the question on the Gooseberry Falls shoveled. I don't see any others. So.
Go ahead. Keep going.
And again, this was sort of for our club, which I think has a lot fewer experienced photographers, at least when I started doing this, than Western Wisconsin does. If you've got the white balance on auto, you sort of forget about it and you get used to sort of a bluish tone, or at least that's what I, can get off of my camera. If I just have it on auto in the winter, for me, it's too blue. So if I don't set the white balance ahead of time, I definitely try to remember to do it when I'm processing. But I did find myself, especially when I was starting out, having the white balance on auto, and you, like I said, you get used to it and you don't even notice it after a while. But I think if you take a look, you can obviously see the difference in the color tone. Next. And then, not to tell you how histograms work, but I am constantly checking it. If it's really cold or the wind is blowing, I really don't try to do much except just simply adjust the shutter speed, trying to keep making sure I have some of the detail over on the right without blowing things out. But the rest of it I'll fix back home where it's comfortable. Usually once I get ISO and all of that set up, I just sort of manipulate just using shutter speed. And that's where those lobster gloves or mittens come in really handy. I can do that very easily without exposing my hands and freezing them. Next. Okay, this is the safety part. I think when you're out doing nature, landscapes, whatever, it's really, I mean, you're always looking around, moving to a different spot to get a better angle, whatever. You've really got to be careful in the winter. Uh, one of the things that happens is you're looking at the composition and trying to figure out just that great spot or a spot where you're not going to have a branch in the way or whatever, and you're not really paying attention to what you're stepping on. A lot of ice, especially with those Kahula spikes, no problem. But it's the thin, clear, icy spots. Gooseberry is bad for that. Split Rock Lighthouse is bad for that. Another condition all up and down the shore, those rock beaches where the stones are golf ball size to baseball size, they generally form with a thin layer of ice, and it looks like you're stepping on stone that'll give a little and you'll have good footing like you do in the summer. They're frozen solid. Your spikes really don't dig in. You can, I've seen I haven't gone down, but I have seen, well, two photographers over the years. One just sort of fell on his butt, but the other one took a pretty good tumble because he stepped on that frozen rock surface and totally surprised. If the slope is too steep, you've got to really be careful. And this is where I was going to go, the question on, I think it was Gooseberry or Split Rock. No, they do not shovel any of the stairs to get down to the lake at any of the state parks, or at least I have not seen any. The worst one, or the most dangerous one, is Tetagooch. Last year, probably starting mid-January, if you know Tetagooch at all, if you're going off to the left towards Shovel Point, there's a couple of sets of stairs. They were literally like ski hills. No break for the steps. It was just probably about a 45-degree angle slope, and it was hard and icy. Thank goodness you've got the handrail there for a lot of it, but don't expect the steps to be shoveled. And then the state parks, and Tetagooch especially, I'm not sure if it's just because of the terrain or who the ranger is. They put up signs and ropes and barriers, and I've seen people, you know, just go over the side of them and just totally ignore them. But I really strongly advocate that you respect them. You can get up to a cliff edge and it looks pretty good. You're actually maybe basically standing on snow without anything underneath until you hit the shore, maybe 20 feet below. There is one spot there where I personally know a photographer, a very good photographer, who went over a cliff like that. And I really don't even need to do this anymore. Once you hit 76, you sort of come to terms with that you maybe aren't as tough or coordinated or strong as you once were. But I used to tell people it wasn't so much if, will I get hurt, but I would always ask myself, if I fall, will I damage my camera? And often it was, yeah, I might wreck the camera. No, I'd better not do that. But again, just be careful. Ice and snow, different conditions, as I know a lot of you already know. Next. Okay, and again, this I've sort of touched on a little bit already. Going to the second line, you need to be flexible since the conditions vary so much in the winter. Snow determines where you can drive and park. Just because a lot was, you could drive into it a month before, doesn't mean it's going to be open the next month. And also, even if you can get to a spot, the water I've noticed, I would say the last 4 years, Lake Superior has gotten maybe, I don't know, I should check, but probably a foot higher. And this does keep you from some spots, especially during high winds. And also, if you've been going up there, I think this is with the higher water or maybe stronger storms, but the beaches themselves are getting steeper as rocks get pushed up and up. It's happening at Split Rock, the Rock Beach off the Grand Marais campground. That one's not so bad since it's basically a low beach. Hollow Rock, I was just up there shooting the Milky Way about a week ago, and that one has really piled up and gotten steeper. And again, it's just another reason to be careful. Next. Okay, 3 reasons for going. All obviously the lighthouse, Split Rock, sea smoke up on top, ice formations on the left, and I think what a lot of people really are fascinated by, waves, which is bottom right. Next. Okay, sea smoke, sort of a definition. Fog formed when cold air moves over warmer water. If you're going to go photograph sea smoke, this is sort of where rational becomes fanatical, maybe. Some mornings I've wondered, what am I doing out there? You need cold air temperatures. You can get it at 0 degrees. 15 is even better. I've been there at 27 below. Conditions you look for, clear skies, light winds. Usually, and this is where the sun coming up late really helps, because it's usually a day trip for me. Before 10 o'clock are the best conditions. After that, it's moved offshore, it's gotten less, and probably the most critical, the sun has gotten too high to get the really great color. You can start looking for it beginning of December, probably to mid-January. After that, the difference between the air and the water isn't as great, but then also what happens, some years, parts of the lake ice up, and that obviously cuts out the sea smoke. And I'm always looking for backlighting. And generally, I'm looking for a west with maybe a little bit of a southwest wind. But very light is usually the best. Next. Again, this is sort of my 1-day trips, and I sort of go up the shore here. Canal Park is the first stop, easy or the quickest to get to. Usually a lot of people. It can be very icy, but it's also because you can get there as the sun's coming up. Best chance at good backlighting. Next. Brighton Beach on your way out of Duluth, right before you get to Highway 61, where it's 4 lanes up to 2 harbors. It's been under repair this summer. I'm not sure if it's going to be done here this summer or not, but that used to be my first stop. Next. Stony Point, if you're familiar with the old fishing cabin, I think anybody who's photographed on the North Shore has gotten this one. That's my 3rd stop. Here is an example of the wind a little bit from the wrong direction. It's coming in, makes it miserably cold, and this is actually a break in the fog. There were times when I couldn't see the cabin from this spot. Next, that was a south wind. 2 harbors, here's where you, straight west wind with a little bit of southwest to keep it in. you've got that dramatic background. It's not enough to cover the lighthouse, but it gives you a good background. Next. Same type of conditions, the overlook at Split Rock. And for me, I'm not sure exactly what the conditions have to be. It's sort of hit and miss whether you get that really dramatic background in front of some sort of structure. Next. Okay, same day, an hour apart, Stony Point Cabin. The moon was just going down. And again, it was coming probably in a little bit too much. Whereas an hour later at Burlington Bay and Two Harbors, I was too late for the really good light there because the sun was up over the sea smoke. Next. But I've hit these conditions twice and it's just magical. If you get sunrise colors with sea smoke, I mean, you can't make this kind of light up. It lasted maybe between 5 to 10 minutes. And I was there out on the point and I just took what I had because I wanted to get the light. But it literally was this pink or magenta or whatever color it is. Next. And then what I really like, and I think what people look for, is that golden light when you get it where it's just above that really thick layer and just starting to break through. I think it's just wonderful light. If you take see the bottom thing there, it was 18 below at this point. I do remember that. Next. Okay, ice. This you can find anywhere up on the North Shore. I often don't plan trips for it. It's just sort of a bonus. I think it adds a great deal, to the foreground or the photo or whatever. Just it adds drama, or maybe I just like ice really well. Next. And the ice changes. Here, it's just starting to form in the harbor. It's that fractured pancake ice. John Greger, I know, has some great photographs where he has spots where it revolves around and he takes a long exposure, probably done in December. And then by February, it really gets built up and just sort of becomes almost another shelf by itself. And I generally just keep off the ice, even if I think it's safe. I just don't mess with it. It's always moving up there. It's not like a lake down here. I guess I would think of it as early ice on the St. Croix River. Maybe some people go out on it, but I never would. Next. And again here, Brighton Beach. This is March. These sheets sort of go back and forth between the North and South Shore in March. And I've seen people carrying these things the size of a window, and they're getting it just in the right position so they can get the sun through it. I've never gone through that effort. It doesn't really fascinate me like it does some people, but these are the conditions in March at especially Brighton Beach. Next. Tetagooch, I just call it the ice sculpture park. It bears the northeasterners, and then you usually have the cold snap, and just the ice just really fascinates me. Both of these were at Tetagooch. The bottom one is the mouth of the Baptism River, which has great formations, except that tree now is no longer. Storms wiped it out. Next. And this is Crystal Bay in Tetagooch. You can get down to the bay. And I've got that coming up later, but it's just a fairyland after a storm and then cold conditions. And between the sea smoke and the light coming in, I wish I'd been there early enough to get the golden light, but I wasn't, but I still really love the spot. And I was real satisfied with what I got that morning there. Next. An ice can rescue an outing. This is at Gooseberry. Got up early, drove up there, really expecting great conditions. And the sea smoke just sort of sat off of shore. I was expecting a great sunrise. There's color there on the other side of it, but I did not get it. So I did take this photo, but then a little bit later, next, I just went looking for ice formations. And this is one of many that day where there wasn't even that much as far as wave action, but I thought the ice was just sort of neat as it set off the lighthouse in the distance. Next. But I think what fascinates most people is the big wave hunting. Uh, this young lady here, this is at Grand Marais. I was there photographing the waves. She came by me and got up on the rock and just sat there for about 10 minutes, turned around and said, "This is addicting." And I said, "Yeah, it really is." A little while later, she tried to get a little bit closer and got fairly wet, but she didn't even seem to mind. Next. And this is obviously not winter. This was probably the most fun storm because it was a little bit warmer and it wasn't rainy. This was an October storm, but it really, really is fun to be up there when the lake is angry like this. This is in Tetagooch, right off of Highway 61, and I'll point out where it is if you already don't recognize the spot. Next. Okay, gales of November. I mean, I hit one last year, yeah. But they're sort of a myth. I've gotten them from October 9th to April 15th. If you take a look, that span I consider winter storm season up there. December has good storms. Generally, that also comes with a blizzard up there. And the highway conditions, practically every storm in December that I was hoping to get up there, I just decided it wasn't worth it because basically they were recommending no travel. Again, National Weather Service, Two Harbors, and I've got other weather service like the Weather Channel and that I monitor, but the National Weather Service, that's where the others get their information. 2 days out, if they're forecasting a storm or have flood warnings for the lake, it's time to start making plans. And what I generally look for, winds sustained of 25 miles an hour, gusts 40 or more, and look at the bottom, direction of the wind is critical. But if they've got that wind speed and it's from the right direction, if I can at all be up there, I'm going to be. And the big ones, generally, you've got 2 days to do it. I've noticed that. They usually don't blow out after a day. Next. Okay, National Weather Service, if they give a lakeshore flood warning on the Two Harbors or Duluth station, that's really a good indication. If you're looking for waves, you want to be there. The blue arrow, this is the northeasterner. And if you notice, yeah, they tend to be sort of towards the west end of the lake. And then the red arrows, this is usually a warmer storm that has come out of the Southwest United States. and Temperance River, Grand Marais, and Hollow Rock are the places for these because it's a west-southwest wind. I mean, it's just sort of a rule, and I've always found it to be true. Next. Okay, I'm out for waves. I like to watch for probably 10 minutes before I'm even trying to take photos. Just seeing the shape, angle, timing, spot where there seems to be the waves breaking. And I don't know how many of you have read about the group of 17. Supposedly ocean waves and waves on Lake Superior come in groups of 17. I've never actually tried to count them, but I think it's probably quite accurate because usually what you'll get is a series and it's almost always 3 waves that are larger. So if you miss that first big one, get ready because there'll probably be a second and possibly even a third. But you've also got to be careful of those rogue waves that are a little bit bigger and come out of, you know, wherever. Right after I took this picture, this is the only time I was knocked down by a wave on Lake Superior. And I was standing 10 feet from where the waves had been. But you notice the branch on the right, I just had to get to that better spot, move to my left, and then I saw this larger one coming in, and I really didn't get knocked over. It was like the sand got swept out from under me and sort of went down, holding the camera well up. But I always notice where the debris on the beach is or where it's been reaching, and I do not go below that. Next. This is the Baptism River, and I've used this one before. I wish I had stayed here about 45 seconds longer. This was one of 3 college-age kids, and he wants a dramatic picture of a little iceberg, I guess we'll call it. So he's down on the beach and right down there getting what he wants as a perspective. Notice the red circle on the right, how much higher the waves had broken, and you can see behind them, the little white spots are bits of ice, which is a pretty good indication. Well, a minute after I took this picture, next, I got this one of my favorites I've ever taken there. A wave came just barreling in. I snapped this one, looked at the kid on the beach. He was holding his camera above his head, and that ice chunk that he was photographing, he had the other arm out and was trying to ward it off of him while his 2 buddies were standing up on dry land, laughing at him, sort of typical college, male college behavior. But they can come in and catch you. Next. Okay, the app I use, windfinder.com. You can make out the shape of Lake Superior there among all the colors. Over on the left is a scale for the wind. And if you take a look, it's showing, well, probably 17-mile-an-hour winds, and the arrows indicate that it's coming in at a good direction. So if you go to windfinder.com, go up on top, and then you'll have to mess around with it because basically I think you could find conditions any place on Earth. I've found the wave conditions on White Bear Lake, just checking to see, you know, they do have it all over, but it really comes in handy for Lake Superior. And then also West Lake Buoy is the one I use. There's various spots and you can see them. I just put in West Lake because it's sort of in the middle of everything. Next. And you also get this, if you take a look, just glancing at it, obviously February 3rd, this is what I might aim for. It gives you wind direction, wind speed. Down at the bottom, if you notice, it gives you wave height. 6 feet, 5 feet, probably not worth going up for. I generally look for 9 feet or higher at the bottom if I'm looking for really good waves. And then the arrows are also important. Notice the wind direction. Those first windows, it's coming almost from the north. You're not going to get any wave photos with that wind direction. Where if you go to Thursday, the wind has shifted, but it's also gone down. So these 2 days, I wouldn't have gone up. And these conditions keep changing. You can be 10 days out, get really excited, and as it gets closer and closer, they tend to overestimate them the further out they are. But like I said, 2 days out, then it's usually locks in. Next. And another one is windy.com. And again, it gives you sort of the same type of map. Here the wave height is down in the very low right-hand bottom. You can see those different colors. And it's telling you here the miles per, or not wave height, I'm sorry, the wind speed. It's telling you it's getting up to maybe 30 miles an hour. And this is for Friday the 9th, which is 2 days from now. And I took this screenshot last week. I wanted a different one. So I have no idea if it's still accurate or not. Again, not worth going up, since you notice right next to the shore, it's basically green, lower wind speed, obviously more shallow waves. Next. Okay, again, there's sort of a series of stops. Silver Cliff. This is right past the first tunnel, going up or going east out of Two Harbors. There's a parking lot next. Okay, at the very top, you can see I'm sort of working down. I don't have a cursor. Parking lot, you're beyond the tunnel. This one is always plowed. You can see where the tunnel is. And then there's a bike path, and it's about a 200-yard walk to the shooting point there. And at the very bottom, I've got an arrow. It's not quite in the picture, but that's where that gazebo is. And I've shot there 3 times. The previous slide I showed you was maybe the most dramatic conditions. I've also gotten it when it's been icing up, but the wave wasn't nearly like this one. I've got photos from this day where you don't even see the gazebo. Next. Okay, Split Rock Lighthouse has 3 wonderful places for waves. You obviously can pick out that first one up on top. Second one is sort of off to the right. Ellison Island is just to your left here. And then the third one, you've got to realize the cliff that the lighthouse is on is a little over 100 feet high. And there's a natural slot or a crevice in the rock there. And I never knew about it until I kayaked past it, where obviously the waves hit and they're just forced up. There's a couple of crevices, but especially one big one, and it can be very dramatic. Next. And this is the first one. You can, if you know, I'm assuming you know the park a little bit. You've gone Highway 61 is that stripe on top or the road on top. You go in and you don't go to the lighthouse. You take a right, go down the hill to the trail center, and that's the rock shelf where you get off that point and you can get really dramatic photos. For me, it's, I mean, I've spent literally hours there just photographing waves. Next. However, in strong northeasterners, it's almost impossible to get a good shot because the wind is blowing the spray right at you. This is an example of that. I've got way over on the left. This was a 2-day trip. My wife insisted on going, or said she'd go with. She likes storms. She never ever got out of the car because it was too nasty. And I came back to the car and I asked her, well, you know, why didn't you come out? She just sort of looked at me like I'm not stupid, and went back to reading her book. Next. Okay, you can see where the lighthouse is. Right above the picture is that point from the previous shot. And this is that Pebble Beach that's sort of, the picture is covering Ellison Island. And if you stand right off that point there, you're safe from the waves. You've got the wind at your back, and you've got these waves that keep pounding that cliff face, and they're usually, you know, different shapes, different sizes, and you can often get combinations of them. As they're breaking in the bay, they're also smashing up against the rock in the background. Next. And this is if you want the lighthouse. You've gone past the entrance, and just a little bit away, there's an area on the right. There's no parking signs right by the opening there. What it is, it's the parking lot for the scuba divers that dive in this bay where there is a shipwreck, the Madeira, there. But you can park right in front of the no parking signs. I've never been bothered there. Walk in there past the gate, and chances are, especially if it's been snow, you'll see the path where people go through. This is an area you probably want to stay off the beach. So I stay above the beach, just go a little bit to the left, you can find an opening in the trees. Obviously you need a tripod, and you can shoot across at the lighthouse. I've been there twice. I'm still waiting for a sunny day with backlighting. I think that would be super dramatic there. Next. Black Beach is the third spot you could go to. It's the safest, and the word is relative. It's the most comfortable. You're standing on a cliff looking at this little bay. The wind is at your back, and you get a lot of dramatic wave action. What I like here, it's hard to see. Over on the right, there's also a seagull, and there's usually gulls swooping in and out. And if you really want to be challenged, try to get a seagull in the right position as the wave is breaking on that rocky point. I have yet to do it. Next. Okay, this is, I don't know, I wish I had a cursor or whatever. You've gone in, you don't even see the road that you've gone in on. That is not the road above where it says both beaches. The road is up out of the picture on the top. Anyway, you come to a parking lot. It might be plowed, it might be unplowed, but you park there, walk maybe 30, 40 feet to your left. You'll be standing on this cliff that's maybe 20 feet high. And again, the great thing here is you're close to the car, the wind is at your back. And this is where that picture is taken from. I've got the arrow there. That's the point where it is. Notice the other two arrows. I stay off the beaches there. Well, not always. I've had water up to my ankles on both beaches. It's real easy to get ambushed there. All of a sudden, you look down and you think, yeah, I'm going to get my feet wet here. You're not going to get swept away, but the waves come in a lot higher than you think. Next. And then Tetagooch is the last stop. Next. 3 spots there. If you've been by Tetagooch at the, not the visitors, well, it is a visitor center. It's also the rest stop. You can see that just right to the right of the middle picture. One of the spots is the mouth of the Baptism River. I've shown this picture before. Another spot is going to the left, and it's overlooking a little bay. And then the third spot I'll talk about is Crystal Bay. That's the top picture. Next. Okay, this is Crystal Bay from Highway 61. You go just past Highway 1 that goes up to Finland. It's wide enough to park beyond the guardrail. There very well might be other cars there. You might have to wade through knee-deep snow because you want to get under the power line, but you set up with your tripod and you'll get a whole series of these tremendous waves just pounding that cliff over and over and over again. Next. And there's also a path that you can get down to Crystal Bay, and you'll see it, especially if it's been snowing. However, you need a hiking pole, or at least I think you do, and you definitely need ice spikes. I made it twice last year at the age of 75, so it's not like you're climbing Mount Hood or anything like that, but you do have to be prepared, and you are going to work a little bit getting down there and getting back up. But again, when you're down there and get the right conditions, it's just awesome. That cliff, again, I'm not sure the height of it, but that's at least a 30-foot spruce tree there on the cliff. Next. And then I've got a map here. You can see Highway 1 to Finland. You've got Park off the side of Highway 61, and then the steep trail, and then where that red is the cliff face that you're going to be photographing. Relatively safe with some angles, but like I said, this is the one place I've gotten really wet with waves because of the angle of the waves coming in. Next. And sometimes it's just too wild. Respect the lake. Where that arrow is the mouth of the Baptism River, where this is a different storm, where that kid was photographing the ice. And I just sort of got halfway down there and thought, no, this is nuts. And then I came back up, and on the other side, I looked back and thought, yeah, there's no way you would have made it. The waves were breaking even on the right where that arrow is. You can see where the ice is formed. They were breaking totally over that point. Next. Best spot for a southwest wind is Grand Marais. I just love getting that lighthouse when the waves are coming in. You need a little bit of a southwest wind. I've been there on a really strong day when it's a west wind, and they do not crash against the lighthouse like this. You need a southwest wind. Once it gets to above sustained 20 miles an hour, you've got a good chance for some really neat wave shots. Next. And like I said, the lake is getting higher. At the top, this was one of the first photos I ever took with a digital camera, and I got out where I could see the lighthouse. And if you take a look, I can see the lighthouse here, but because the lake has gotten higher, there's no way I can, yep, if you put the cursor there way over in the bottom picture in the upper right, yep, there's no way I could shoot on the left side of that tree and still get the lighthouse, simply because the waves are just coming in that much more. Next. And the dark white arrow, or not dark white arrow, good grief. The thick white arrow on the right is where the lighthouse is. Over on the left, this is in the campground road. You go to the end. It has been totally redone down in there. They have a pier now. If you just go up a little bit with that cursor, Steve, yep, right in there, they have rebuilt a breakwater, another boat ramp there, and you can walk out a little bit further there. I'm not sure what the wave action is going to be like. There also is stairs going up on the rock shelf. You've got to be really careful there. It's a fun spot, but it's icy and wild. I've gotten wet there a couple times when waves have broken, and I mean, I got the camera sheltered, but I have also gotten wet there. Next. And just a few degrees in the wind makes a big difference. This is a west wind, 20 to 25 miles an hour. You can see the waves there are they're not really doing anything. And it was a straight west wind. And earlier that day, it had been a southwest wind. Next. And this is obviously hollow rock, and the rock's a fairly, good sized rock. They were breaking very nicely there. It was just the angle was good for good wave action. And then later on in the previous shot, it shifted a little bit to the west, and then the wave action died down. And I think one more slide I see, and it's of my understanding wife who was with me here and decided to try her hand at winter photography. So that's basically it. If there's any questions or whatever.
Mike, this was fabulous. The level of detail and experience, based on your experience that you provided, has been just amazing, and your wisdom and your safety tips. Thank you so much.
Okay, I see a couple of questions here. Shutter speed range are you using for the big wave splashing? I'm trying to remember. Basically, I want to get above 500. And I have shot bursts, and I found it wasn't worth it, just simply because you're going through so many photos, and after a while, how many wave pictures do you need? So if you watch for a while, you can sort of sense and see when they're going to break nicely. And again, I want to say I'm looking for at least 600, probably to 1/1000th. That one of the lighthouse at Grand Marais, that was a fairly bright day, and I'm sure that one was quite a ways over 1,000. What month did you shoot the big waves at Crystal Bay? That first one, you could see the fall colors, so that was October, and then April has been the other month that I've gotten them a couple times there. And it just depends. And I've also seen video taken in December. I said I never went up because of the blizzard, but if it's a northeasterner, that'll be the spot you want to be at if you want the most dramatic photos. And if you want to, well, I guess Terry could also get you my email address. It's just mikechrun@midco.net. If there's a particular slide you wanted of the maps and that, I'll certainly be happy to share that with you.
And just to remind people, I've recorded this, so it's going to be available on our YouTube channel as well. And I've got your email address, so I can share that with the distro as well.
Oh, okay.
Questions from anybody?
Well, thank you. And thank you for I'm looking at the chat here. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback and the words.
Yeah, very helpful.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop the presentation. So, and the recording. So,
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
thank you.
Good night.
Good night.